May be participating by Zoom today, but as is your custom, we'll begin with a pledge of allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. McNamee, are you with us by Zoom today? We have one unidentified iPad, I'm told. He is out of town in Houston and is aware of the meeting. I've talked to him in advance, but if not, we will show that the remaining members of the board are present, in addition to Mr. Lombardo and myself. We have some special guests today, but all other board members are here. A copy of the affidavit and notice of today's meeting was on the website and also in the newspaper. That takes us, Mr. Vice Chair, down to item number 2, approval of today's agenda. I have no additions.
Any additions, Zach?
I have a series of items on the attorney's report. There's a proposed settlement agreement for the PDM lawsuit. There's an easement use agreement for the K's Phase 2 project. There's a small edit request from South Florida Water Management on their easement. And then there are documents regarding the potential acquisition of the parcel, southeast commercial parcel, that I would like to cover in the attorney's report section. I don't know if they need to be added to the agenda. I'm just letting you know that that's what I've got.
All right. Motion to approve with those.
Make the motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Thank you. Public comments are next. I believe we have 2. These are for items that would otherwise not be on the agenda today. And then, Mr. Chairman, as sort of our practice, when we get down to it, I would like to do the monthly utility report, and we also have a special request from the Mosquito Control District. So we will do those right after the approval of minutes. Public comment this morning. The first one I have is Tim Estott. You will. I just need you to stand right there in the event people who are watching by Zoom today can see that.
Good morning, gentlemen. I'm Tim Estott. I'm sure you got my letter, and I think it was on the agenda today to discuss this, I hope, and answer my questions. I'm merely here to try to gather, to understand your operation. I'm from Ohio, so I know your laws and regulations are different. But I've had dealings, and I think it was pretty much outlined in my letter of the concerns and what your process is on certain things like the purchase of property. So can anybody expound on that?
We are, and our attorney just alluded, he's going to provide a presentation and an updated that item when we get to the attorney's report today. So they'll just stand by on that.
That's perfect. That's okay. Perfect. Yes, very good.
Anything further?
No, not at this point. I hope I have the opportunity to address the questions once he does his presentation. And it is a little hard to hear when you talk. If you could use a mic, I don't know if we have a mic available here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next registered speaker is Mr. Westerman. On?
No, okay.
We're going to wait for the moment. Any other public comment today on items that are not on the agenda? There'll be an additional opportunity for you at the end of the meeting. All right. Thank you. We've got 2 set of minutes today for your review. The first were your regular meeting of March, and behind the first tab. We also have a set of workshop. Let's see if you have any on the regular meeting. This is March 21st. Zach, do you have any suggested edits?
No, sir.
Motion to approve the regular meeting minutes.
Make the motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
In favor?
Aye. Thank you. The separate set for your utility rate workshop there behind On the next tab, actually, it was not a utility rate workshop. This, I believe, was the executive session. Yeah, this, it's all correct. There was a brief opening and then closing. Otherwise, there was a court reporter here. This was your executive or closed door meeting with your attending to discuss pending litigation. Very cryptic set of minutes. Is there a motion to adopt those?
I make a motion to adopt it.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Matt, that takes us down to you. Good morning. Is that you I waved at the plant?
Oh, yeah, that was me.
I just slid.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Matt Gillespie with Florida Utility Solutions. All operations at the wastewater and water plant throughout the month were in accordance with contract and regulatory requirements. All wastewater plant requirements were met and all water distribution requirements were met. The reuse pump system is functioning well. The canal pump station hasn't changed since last month. We received 2.5 million gallons of wastewater in March. We produced 4 million gallons of water in March, and we distributed 9.4 million gallons of reused water in March. We disposed of 60,000 gallons of sludge from the plant. We tested all the auto flushers, made some changes to the flushers to reduce some flushing. We reread 2 meters. We used 950 gallons of chlorine last month. We performed we inspected all pump stations weekly. Odor control wet checks were performed, and we're continuing with the upgrades on the plant. We poured the pad and the footer for the filter structure at the plant, so we'll be beginning to build the structure for the filter soon. Our deadline is May 15th on that, so we have to have it done by then. Performed a flow meter test at a resident's home, communicated with Kevin Carter and Doral Management regarding FEMA and some questions they had. Installed a new mixer motor, scheduled and performed an inspection of the drinking water ground storage tank that's due every 5 years, so we got that done this past month. We removed vegetation around the well enclosures, reinstalled the booster pump and valve that we had sent out for a rebuild. We ordered replacement check valves for the high service pumps, and we had no accidents or OSHA reportable incidents, and we conducted all of our safety training.
We changed the chlorine setup now, right? We are on
Correct.
chloramine or whatever.
Correct. So typically in April, we do a free chlorine burn, and now we're attempting a permanent switch to free chlorine since ammonia, the system really doesn't need the ammonia. So we started that April 1st, and we're doing that with all of the required testing by the DEP.
Okay, now we were able to reduce some flushing. Is that because of the change of chlorine or?
No, just there's more residents here right now, using more water. So we're just trying to reduce where we can.
Any other questions?
Yeah, the marina water testing,
Mm-hmm.
do we do that quarterly or? I haven't gotten a result yet.
Yeah, so we do it quarterly. I spoke to the lab because we started doing it, and then it's kind of my fault. I didn't follow through with it. We have been testing it, but I haven't been. They were sample results that we're not required to send to the DEP, so I would review them for anything abnormal, but I didn't realize that they were from the marina. I thought they were from the wastewater plant or something. So I'll be putting that together for you, but we do test like 4 different things like nitrogen, phosphorus, fecal, and other things, and through those, the lab has told me that they can tell if there's anything additional in the water, more than what should naturally be in the water.
They check for hydrocarbons and stuff like that, or no?
That's a lab question. And what do you mean hydrocarbons as far as?
Well, if we had fuel spills or something.
Oh, yeah. So they only test for what we tell them to test for. So,
Let's tell them to test.
I can add to that for sure. And is that one that you maybe want us to test more than quarterly? Maybe like
No.
monthly or something?
No,
Okay.
no, it's all right. Quarterly's good.
Yeah.
Now's the time to test when we've been dry and we have nothing coming over the weir.
Right.
So nothing's moving,
Yeah.
so,
Since we haven't tested for that, I'll go ahead and do that now, and then we'll do it again on the next set,
yeah, okay,
well, before the rain starts.
right.
The county water pollution control department has a sampling station that is south of what I call the boat basin, down the canal. And the chairman has asked me to get some data from that. I don't know the frequency, I don't know whether it's monthly or quarterly, but there is a test station there. There's also a sampling point that is on the upstream side of the weir. And so we're trying to compile some additional information. This came up at last month's meeting. Mr. Truckee had expressed concern about gray water discharge into the boat basin, high levels of soap or detergent, things like that. So there is some ongoing work that's being done in that regard.
Yeah, we've had some symptoms of something going on, you could say. We have foam that builds up by the docks now at different times, and we never used to have that. There was some white stuff on the water a couple days ago. I took pictures. It looked like grease looks when you cook. And you have grease in the, a pan or dish.
Solidified somehow.
Yeah, it was chunks that were floating around. I don't know what that was. But there's things showing up that are different, changes. So,
I'll show an update on next month's index as well, because hopefully I'll have some of the results from the county. My understanding is the other parameter that they test for is dissolved oxygen, which, as you can imagine, is very important when it comes to, fish and other, marine type needs. And so we'll try and, whatever's available, because we have been able to verify they have 2 nearby testing points that they're, but if anything that Matt wants to do within the basin itself, I'm happy to do that, and we'll, if you'll just consider that a request, and hopefully we'll share that when we see you next month too.
Yeah, I'll make sure I have it ready for next month.
Any other questions for Matt? If not, Matt, thanks for what you do.
Yeah, no problem.
Happy Easter. Have a good weekend.
Yeah, you
We'll
guys,
see you soon.
happy Easter, have a good one.
Our next item, again, as a professional courtesy, Kara Lucas, who is the Deputy Executive Director with the Mosquito Control District, had asked to give you an update on our new joint venture and inclusion with the district. And so thank you for being here this morning. And if you have other members of your staff you want to introduce, feel free to do so.
Yeah, so I'm Kira Lucas. I'm the Deputy Executive Director at Collier Mosquito Control District. And with me today I have Patrick Lynn. He's our Executive Director, and Suzanne Lee, and she's our Laboratory and Surveillance Manager. First off, I was asked to give a brief update on mosquito control activities in Port of the Islands. So as soon as the governor had signed our bill, we went ahead and started our surveillance in the area. We have a field technician that visits quite regularly, especially during this time of year when you're starting to see an increase in saltmarsh mosquitoes. He'll be here probably 5 days a week. And his name's George. So if you see him, he's out here doing surveillance. He's looking for larvae in the immediate vicinity. He's looking at adult mosquito numbers, and he's placing traps. We've already worked with you guys to place a automated trap that our operations look at every single day, and our laboratory and surveillance manager is working to get some traps out here to do some West Nile virus monitoring as well. So we've just been monitoring. No treatments have been performed yet. We really haven't seen that increase in mosquitoes yet, but you're coming into May and starting to get warm, and you're going to see them quite soon. Which is why we do have a proposal for you. The reason why we wanted to address you today is it's kind of outside of our general work plan. We're proposing residual barrier treatments to you. So a little bit of history with that for the district is in 2022, we started working with a couple residents in Key Wade and Island. They have very similar challenges to mosquito control that you guys do. So you guys are surrounded by these public lands. You got 10,000 Islands, Picayune, Fakahatchee. Key Wade is very similar. They're surrounded right there by very similar habitat, Rookery Bay. And from these areas, you're going to get large amounts of salt marsh mosquitoes. And for you guys up to the north here, you're going to get some of those mosquitoes that can transmit West Nile virus. But because you're surrounded by these lands, we don't treat these public lands. We can't. We do work closely with the land managers if we need to, but we don't typically treat them. We have to treat the immediate vicinity. So for the Key Wade and Island residents, we started working with them in 2022. Unfortunately, Hurricane Ian kind of knocked us off our feet for a while. But then in 2023, we started optimizing our barrier treatment applications. And then in 2024, we really got some great results when it came to our barrier treatments. What we saw was that when we applied barrier treatments and the mosquitoes landed on the plants that were treated with the material, the mosquitoes died. And so we got great effectiveness, and we wanted to offer the same option for you guys. The product that we use is called Wisdom TC Flowable. It's bifenthrin. It's a residual product. And the product is used for a lot more than mosquitoes. It's used in lawn and ornamental pest control. It's used for termites. It's also used inside homes as well. Our idea is that we would treat just for mosquitoes, so this is for public health pest control. We would treat areas where mosquitoes might be resting around homes or in the neighborhood. And we're not sure what the efficacy is going to look like, but we wanted to offer it to you, and we wanted to track that efficacy to see if it is going to be a viable option for the islands. And so I guess what we're looking for is consensus from the board, how you would like to, if you would like the treatments, and how you would like us to go about them. We could treat the area. We could have an opt-out policy where some of your residents may not want the treatment around their home, and they can opt out. We can have an opt-in policy where they opt into the treatment. I'd like to kind of get your consensus on what your guys' ideas are, or thoughts are, and looking for, happy to answer any questions that you might have.
I'm sure one of the first questions we'll have is cost for that.
No, you are part of the district. It is covered by your tax dollars. Yes.
Okay.
How often do you treat?
So by our studies that we did in Key Wade, and we found that you get good control for 4 weeks.
So it's the same stuff like Mosquito Joe uses?
I'm not sure what Mosquito Joe uses.
Well, that's what they get 4 weeks out of it, so.
Okay, yeah,
You
so,
spray the underside of the leaves, the mosquitoes
Yeah.
go in.
yeah, so it's a similar option to what they use. Now, you would still get all of everything else that comes within our, that we do with our general work plan. You still get your aerial treatments, you still, larvicide treatments and all that. This is just an additional option for you.
Why would anybody be against it?
It's up to you. Some residents may prefer not to have chemicals sprayed around their homes.
So then we go with an opt-out policy?
Yeah,
Why not?
yeah, I don't know that our board has the power or the authority to, allow
Make you do it.
district staff on the private property. But I think the opt-out thing is important. A lot of people who are hypersensitive to chemicals and have all their allergies or whatnot are clearly want to understand what the opt-out provisions are. But
Any risk to pets or anything?
No, if it's applied according to the label, what the label does specify is that you allow the product to dry before people or kids or pets enter the area. So we will let the residents know that we will be treating, and then we will have signs out that let them know, until it's dry. Yeah, that is all part of our operations dynamics.
I think advance notice is important. If this is something we're going to do, then we'll need to work with our database to maybe get a copy of this and a cover letter out and understand the mechanism. You know, I'm not looking for more to do in our office, but if they clearly do not want spraying on their property, I'll need sort of maybe a draft letter or something from you guys that we will send.
Okay.
We'll either do it as part of our next utility bill, or we may do a supplemental mailer to the community and a blast email to the presidents of the neighborhood associations here. But if within the body of that draft letter, if you could include, you know, what they need to do if they want to opt out.
Yeah, we can, and we can create a survey that they can visit online, or they can call our office, and yeah, we can work through that.
And is it safe to assume that we're within 30 days of salt marsh mosquito season?
Yeah, we would ideally like to start treatments within the next, 4 weeks or so.
Okay.
Yeah, but if you need more time, that's perfectly acceptable.
If it's the consensus of the board that, you know, this is, you certainly don't have any general opposition to it, but I think it would behoove us to get the mailer out and explain that if people don't want them on their property, they have the right to ask that they be excluded.
Fish or anything like that, water?
According to the label, they want us to stay 25 feet from the water. We're going to extend that a little bit further to 30 feet, just to be safe, and we're going to avoid water and storm drains and flowering plants.
Okay.
Well, you said you use it inside though, too.
It can be used inside.
I mean,
yes.
that should probably be in your thing so people understand it's safe for the pets and whatnot.
Okay.
After it dries, yes.
People, yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question. How would condominiums be handled,
Can we get your name?
please?
Your name, just for the minutes?
Thank you. Catherine Kellmeyer, 314 Newport Drive. Condominiums are very prevalent around here, associations. How would they be handled? Would you go to the association and ask for the area around their association, or would it be individual homeowners?
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think that's something that if you guys have any thoughts on that, I'd probably, going to the association, the management, those who are managing the condominiums are probably the best option.
Is there a way that we could put something out on the website?
Sure.
And open it up to an opt-out? Just not
That
have to
mechanism as well.
contact everyone and just say that, we're gonna have this open for so many days as an opt-out. And then at that point, if you have an opt-out, you're likely to get sprayed.
Yeah, that'll help the notice requirements. And then, if we get from your property manager or the president of your board saying, hey, we've clearly got some concerns, we don't want to participate, then that would be the mechanism that they could use to ask them. But it'd be, I guess, kind of an all or nothing. I don't know how many units there are per building. But if somebody is one of these hypersensitive, chemical people, then, my approach to that would be if somebody has a concern, then that means that building's not going to be sprayed.
Well, let me ask, so in the rest of your district, when you have a condominiumized building, how do you handle the opt-out?
So we typically don't do barrier treatments. That's kind of outside of our, like I said, our general work plan. It's offered to Keewaydon residents because of their proximity to
Oh, I
those
see.
plants,
Okay.
and we want to do the same
So
for
there's
you guys
no-
as well.
there's no-
You guys are the guinea pigs.
There's no comparative,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
How does everyone feel here? Just everyone kind of in favor of trying it?
Yes.
I have a question on it again. I think it was 2017, we had a big salt marsh mosquito issue. I believe we had to come out and put barrier treatment then. Is this the same treatment?
I don't think we did a barrier treatment. I believe it was an aerial application that occurred. Did we send out a buffalo turbine?
In 2017, I think, forgive me, but I believe that it was a collaborative effort, and I believe you have or had a truck and used Anvil 1010.
Okay.
Yeah,
A little different.
yeah. As far as I'm aware, we've never done barrier sprays. So we did do after the hurricane, we did do an aerial treatment. And I don't think we sent out a truck, but, I know aerial treatment for
Yep.
Nothing worked. 2017 was off.
Deborah Jansen, Sunrise K. How is this done, by backpack spraying?
Yeah, it's my backpack spraying. Actually, I put this image, so if you want, there's some copies. I have some extra copies if you guys want a copy of our executive summary. It's done by a backpack sprayer. What we'll do is we'll probably calibrate that unit to only apply about 5 feet, so we have more control where it's going. And it's 1 ounce of material per 1,000 linear feet. So it's a very small amount. And it's effective against mosquitoes, but it is also used to target other pests as well.
And it's pyrethrin, and what's the effect on pollinators and other insects?
It's a pyrethroid, yes, and it after the material dries, it's not expected to have impact on pollinators, but it is a broad spectrum material and it is used against multiple pests. So
if something else is flying and it lands on them, it'll kill them?
It could, but what we're going to do is we're going to avoid flowering plants where pollinators may be resting. We're looking at resting sites for mosquitoes specifically.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Other questions?
Well, yeah, I just had, if you weren't doing this barrier treatment, what you would be doing aerial treatments, so that would expose everybody to everything. There's no
Aerial treatments aerial treatments are treating the airspace, targeting biting flying adults. We may be doing truck treatments as well. So we would still be performing mosquito control, how we typically do it. This is just an additional, yeah.
Did you guys ever add the fish to the ponds that were going to eat the larvae and stuff?
We do have mosquito fish available. Your ponds likely already have fish in them, so we don't need to add them to your ponds. But we do have our field technician and science team do come out here and they look at areas that may be holding and breeding mosquitoes, and we would apply fish if it made sense.
So just to clarify before we move on here on the opt-out, is the consensus that it's for the condos, is it one person in the condo has an issue, or is it a board level decision for the condos that you prefer?
I think they should make their own decision as a board.
As a board. I mean, legally, that makes a lot of sense to me. I just want to make sure that we're
Yeah, and we're just going to be a conduit for that information, because otherwise, I think they're here looking to gauge consensus for a trial, because clearly we don't have the ability to allow them on the private property.
Well, several of our buildings and the condos are within 30 feet of the water, so they're not going to spray there anyway, so.
Yeah, that is one of the concerns, but what we hope to see is that, applying around, the more areas we can treat, the more effective it's going to be. And we can still apply around, the front of the homes. But yes, some homes are going to be more than 30 feet, or are going to be 30 feet or closer to the water. We have already looked at that. They were just out here scoping out the area yesterday, and they did see that there were homes like that. And we're going to create GIS maps of these areas so that we stay for sure 30 feet away from the water.
Just one more, what time of day is this done?
We want to avoid the morning dew, so it'll probably be, like late morning, but our operations team is probably a better answer for that.
So,
Skype, just.
yeah, please, I just need you to come forward because our minutes are all transcribed.
Okay. I didn't want to shout.
Yeah, if you'll identify yourself.
Patrick Lynn, the Executive Director, here with Deputy Director Lucas and Suzanne. We are, what I would like to assure everyone is, and I want to buttress what Dr. Lucas is saying, is that we take an integrated approach to managing mosquitoes. We care very deeply for the environment, as many of you do, and we also care about your public health, and that's our number one reason for existing. So, in a sense, you are, as Kira mentioned, you're sort of the test, the guinea pigs, if you will, for something like this. If you think of it as a pie, the integrated pest management, you have various options at your disposal. And the first and foremost, most important thing is good surveillance. We also would like to tell you that when we do that surveillance, that we need to set your expectations for mosquito control fairly low. And I think you all probably know that, right? When you looked at real estate down here and you're like, oh wow, I'm gonna move to paradise, and ouch, you know, you get eaten alive. That's normal because you live in a swamp. And you're surrounded on four sides by habitat that produces literally trillions of mosquitoes. So what we're trying to do is to make them tolerable, to bring them down to a level where you can rest assured that your public health interests are looked after, that you're a little more comfortable, and so on. And then you need to meet us halfway by using your DEET spray, wearing long sleeve clothing and that sort of thing, and it can be a pretty miserable place otherwise. So in this integrated pest management approach that we take, what we're looking for is, we're looking to be as effective as we can, and we're also looking for your feedback. So if you have concerns about, a lot of people just say chemicals, our concern is if you don't want that, you're small enough so that we can limit the amounts that we use. The aerial treatments that you will likely see in the coming weeks, they're going to be real quick, they're going to be done, and you'll probably see some relief for literally a number of hours. And then they may fly right back in again because the material dissipates, it's essentially metabolized in the atmosphere, and then the wind's blowing and they bring in a new set of mosquitoes. So just wanted to put that out there for you all and to say that we want this to be a back and forth. Like I said, you're small enough that we can take that information. We'd really like to be able to, with our science department or our research department, to be able to collect data and see if it makes a positive impact. And we're trying to avoid those pollinators and such. So anyway, that's all I have for you. Thank you.
And also to add a little bit to that, all of our residents that participated in the Key Wade study have asked for treatment again. So they're happy to continue it through this year as well.
So it'll be my job to get a special notice uploaded to our website in advance. I will need from you the opt-outs. If there's a general mailbox or a specific process, if you'll identify that, then we'll include that along with your executive summary and just a little narrative as to what occurred here today.
Great, yeah, we can do that for you.
Thanks for what you do.
Thank you. Thanks,
I'm going to leave our executive summary here as well as my card. If anyone has any questions, you're welcome to send me an email.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, that takes us down to 6B. I gave you an additional handout this morning. I just want to make you aware that I'm having an ongoing discussion with the sub-consultant to our engineer that was hired to renew the operating permit for the utility plant. On 2 occasions, they had to process extensions to the previous permit to keep us in compliance, and it was important while we awaited the arrival of the disc filters. And so they have submitted a request for about $8,600 in additional cost. That's an estimate. I have asked for more details to determine whether or not, all of that or what portion of that is valid. Don't need any approval from you today, but I just said we've got this out there and I'm working on it. Hope to give you a better update or tell you what the resolution of it was when I see you next month.
Yeah, just the one thing I mentioned to you before, we're working with that same consultant to do some testing for the lead and arsenic in the ground. Their source is doing some of that for us too. And we just have to keep them to task on that and keep the expenses reined in. So they've requested a couple of meetings that I don't believe we need. I think it's pretty cut and dried, what we've asked them to do, and we're following the expenses on that too.
Yeah, you and I are on the same wavelength with that. We live in the upcharge capital of the world where I don't care. I had a technician come out to reset a time clock on an irrigation system that we manage. And he was there maybe 15 minutes, sent us a bill for $500 just to reboot the clock, and I haven't paid that, so I'm with you.
Well, right now, the consultant had requested a couple more meetings, and I told him no, that I think it's cut and dried. I think they can do what they need to do.
Yeah,
And so if they talk to you, that's where.
they haven't yet, but if they do, I'll be prepared. The next item that I have is the 5-month financials. They're behind the next tab in your materials there. I should say in advance that next month we will be getting the first look at the tentative budget for 2026 at your May meeting. And I will have mid-year actuals to share with you at that time, which I think are a little meaningful for that. And the budget is, again, going to be at least tentatively prepared on the assumption that we will be changing our utility rate structure to go to a base charge in lieu of a non-ad valorem subsidy that has been the case here for many years. But at the end of February, or 5 months, you'll see that you had $5.4 million in cash, split between the general fund, $3.9 million, and the utility fund at $1.4 million. Additionally, there were about $13 million in fixed assets, depreciation allowance, net of depreciation, $7.8 million in fixed asset. That represents primarily our utility system and other infrastructure associated with street lights and drainage and road facilities. There were $59,000 in payables that are shown on the liability side of the balance sheet there. On the next page, the income statement. Again, just a couple of things. During the month of February, we received $41,000 in assessment revenue. That's really pretty good. I will expect that next month will be the same because those taxes would have been delinquent on April the 1st, and so we'll see some additional. Year to date, we're about 77% of the originally forecast revenues. It's my understanding that the hotel have not yet, or as of this date, have not paid their taxes. That has been typical for them. Their taxes are usually sold at the auction that occurs in May. And so there's always a little lag there, but at some point, at least in recent history, we will get our money, but it usually comes through the public auction when those taxes get sold. On the expense side of the budget, year to date, in the general fund, total expenses were about $200,000 below budget. The primary reason for that is that we have not yet had any landscape improvements from a capital improvement perspective, and so that's kind of a little cushion. We had $100,000 in the budget if we were going to do any enhancements to the landscaping. Our contingency fund is untapped, and our capital reserve contribution is also untapped year to date. On the utility side, I did want to just show you that obviously with the delay and many of the improvements to the plants and additional, we're over budget year to date in engineering fees, but that also includes the cost to re-permit the utility plant, to include the sub-consultant. We're also slightly over budget with the other contractual services item. And let me find exactly where that is. That's back in the admin side. When you had the little pilot project last year to begin to Zoom all of our meetings, That was not budgeted, and so we're going to be a little over budget in the other contractual line item, just because we are incurring costs with that service that we're providing, and I think it's been pretty well received. Sometimes there's, a handful of people, but other times we've had as many as 15 people who participated in the utility workshop and things of that nature. That's really all that I had. If you have any questions, happy to answer them. Otherwise, you can entertain a motion to accept them today.
You mentioned something about the engineering being over. Right now, with a couple of our FEMA grant requests, we have to do more engineering. FEMA's kind of stuck their feet in the mud a little bit on some of it, and with the job cuts on FEMA, it's a little difficult, but we have to move forward with some of the engineering to be able to get bids on the system. For instance, our new well pipe that runs from the wellheads to the building, that's about a $1.2 million project. They're stuck at about $400,000 that they want to offer us. And we think that they're estimating, they have their inside estimators doing that, and they're out of whack. They started at like 16,000 and they're up to 400. If we do the engineering, we're gonna have to do it anyway, but if we finish the engineering now to go to bid on it, those bids can be taken to FEMA, and that may solidify our position for the 1.2 grant. So we're gonna be spending a little bit more money on engineering right now anyway, to push that. So kind of gives you an idea of what's going on in the engineering world.
We're good. Motion to accept the February financials.
I make the motion to accept.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Thank you, and that's all that I have today. Zach, that takes us down to the attorney's report.
Sure, good morning. The first item I have is the proposed settlement agreement for the lawsuit against the former management company and the former manager regarding public records. The operative terms for consideration here is the district would receive payment in the amount of $22,500. There's a representation in this agreement that all records that have been produced to date are all the records that exist. And to the extent they weren't produced, they do not exist. And with that representation and the payment, then there's a release for the manager and the management company. And then there is a non-disparagement clause and a neutral reference clause with respect to both of those parties. Keeping in mind that what the public records lawsuit is designed to do is to get records back and then pay your legal fees for doing so. It's my recommendation that this settlement agreement achieves those ends without having to continue the litigation. I'm available to answer any questions you may have, and otherwise I would recommend that this is an agreement that achieves the goals and is worth entering into and approving.
And all of this has been shared with the chairman in his absence today. He is aware of the proposed settlements.
Yes.
Did he agree to it? Does he agree?
My understanding is he did not object to it. I don't know. We didn't have a very detailed conversation about it. But he does have a copy of it.
We set a price, a goal of 30,000 at our meeting. We said we'd take 25. We're at 22.5. I don't know that it pays to continue for $3,000. But
There's another $4,000 down there, isn't there?
Yeah, there is a $4,000 expense that came up in the cost. That's kind of a disputed item that we're putting up to bed, so I'm not really representing that as a true. The district has not incurred that cost yet. There's a cost that prior counsel for Mr. T insisted we needed to pay to get certain records. We disagreed with them. And so this just kind of puts that to bed. But the district has not outlaid that money, so I didn't want to represent that as like.
So does that mean that they're paying for it?
They are paying for it.
He
So-
has to assure us that those are the costs that he has paid for.
So it's, in that
We're not
sense,
paying.
it's a $26,500 offer. However, I think that's more fair to call it a $22,500 offer in terms of what is the money that the district will be paid. And it's my understanding that that will adequately resolve the attorney's fees spent on this matter. And to me, that's the main driving factor here, because at the end of the day, the court will not be awarding more than the amount of attorney's fees spent in this case. In fact, the courts oftentimes award less because you're not entitled to all of your attorney's fees, you're entitled to your reasonable attorney's fees.
I'd like to close this up, I guess. I'm gonna make a motion that we accept the 22.5 and move forward.
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
No, I want it to go away.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Next,
Is this, I have a question.
yes.
Now that it's settled, is this public record?
This is, yes, it's a public record.
So if I went online, I could see that somebody sued him?
That has been the case the entire time.
I just wasn't sure.
No, and I guess just informationally, so all lawsuits are available, all currently and really in the recent history, I would say anything filed in the last 20 or 30 years is findable on the Call Your Clerk's website. And so any member of the public who went in there and searched either Port of the Islands or Premier District Management or Calvin T would find this lawsuit. And then depending on what kind of case it is, sometimes you can get actually every single thing filed in the case. And certainly if you went down to the clerk's office, you'd be able to achieve and receive those documents. The next item to go over here is, there's an easement use agreement and this actually, I apologize, this is not sitting in front of you. This is regarding the case phase 2. There's a location of some stormwater facilities. Your engineer was able to redraw the Exhibit A, which is, as I understand it, important for getting the county's sign off on the SDPI process. This is not sitting there, although I have some additional copies. And so what we proposed is all we're doing is updating the attached exhibit to what the engineer proposed. And so the copy of this, let's see, do you have that?
I don't know.
No, I know, hold on one second.
This is the one for the South Shore Water District.
Yeah, that's the next item, hold on. So what you'll receive is, it's the exact same easement use agreement that you previously approved, but what's critical is that the drawing has changed. And this was updated by your engineer. So the document will be, if approved, recorded with the updated rendering.
This case. So you're looking for, is this your stuff? What you talking about?
To the end of the cul-de-sac.
It's just not this. Thanks. So you're changing your easement to agreements.
My understanding is the original drawing did not capture exactly where the facilities were. So this drawing fixes the, that portion from the original drawing. And then this is the district confirming that this is acceptable to the district so that this can move back to the county process and this issue can be put to bed.
Great, so that goes with that.
Yes.
Keep this, right?
Yes.
I am. I need this. It goes with that.
Okay, so since you handle this, they did, good?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so that goes with the easement use
So what-
agreement. that I have
It goes with
signed
the
on.
easement use agreement and in the,
And then I need the insubstantial change, which
yes.
Neil will sign.
Yes, the affidavit of authorization for the insubstantial change. So I'd recommend two motions here, one on the easement use agreement and then one on the affidavit of authorization for the insubstantial change.
Okay, so I'll make a motion on the easement use agreement.
approving it.
Approving it.
Okay, we have motion, any discussion? We need a second. I'll second it. Any discussion? Right, all those in favor? Aye.
And then one on the affidavit of authorization for the insubstantial change, and that's that drawing again.
Right. So I make a motion that Neil can sign the affidavit for insubstantial change.
And this is authorizing Johnson Engineering to finish the county process on this.
Okay,
I'll second that.
all right, any discussion? All right, take vote, all those in favor? Aye.
The next item is what's sitting in front of you. The South Florida had 2 additional comments. I consider these to be ministerial, but I am bringing it back to you regardless, just to make sure we're clear. On page 2, in an earlier version of this, we had styled this as a non-exclusive easement. We've since changed to exclusive, but the word non-exclusive remained on page 2, and so South Florida would like to delete that. That seems reasonable to me, the contemplation here, and the only reason that I understand South Florida is willing to pay the $50,000 for the use of this property is that it's exclusive. And that, as I understand it, that was approved at the last meeting, but this language was just an error. And then they had some edits on page 5 about just kind of cleaning up the language about how notice is delivered. Again, I think these are ministerial, but since I just received these and we had a board meeting today, I thought it was best practice to bring to you just to make sure we're all clear that these are edits that are acceptable. There are no other changes. And as I understand it, in the background, what South Florida is doing is they have, at their cost, they are appraising that property now to put together a package for their board to confirm that they should indeed pay you the $50,000 to get this easement agreement. So by your approval of this, what will happen is it still goes to the South Florida board, and they have to make that decision. If they do, then this will get recorded and move forward. If they don't, I guess they will come back to you all to discuss this further.
They're doing an appraisal of,
The southwest commercial property, the property that this easement is over. So I guess pursue.
what type of appraisal though? I mean, a commercial?
I guess a commercial valuation to determine, they didn't share anything with me other than they were getting an appraisal. But my understanding is South Florida's policy is anytime they spend money for real estate interests, they have to have a documented appraisal to support that. So I'm just sharing that, 'cause I think that's interesting information.
Can we get a copy of that
Yeah.
for you?
It will be a public record upon being completed.
Okay.
So we will, I think that would be useful and interesting. So that's that one. I guess if I could get a motion to approve these edits.
I make a motion that we approve the edits to the draft, to the document.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That brings us to the other side of the street. There are 2 documents here. So in the last meeting, we discussed the southeast commercial property and the district's potential acquisition. We also have a letter in your packet about this potential option. As discussed at the last meeting, I informed the board that our firm continues to have certain concerns from the ethical standpoint of this. They're not insurmountable concerns, but they're things that cause this transaction to be a little bit more cumbersome than any other transaction because the property is owned by an LLC owned by one of your board members, Mr. McAmey, who is not present here today, so he will not be a part of this conversation, nor could he be if he were present. The plan for potential acquisition that I articulated is what's before you. I've identified a appraiser. His name is Mike Jonas. He actually, and I didn't know this at the time, he is the one performing the South Florida appraisal on the commercial southwest parcel. So he certainly has a lot of awareness of Port of the Islands because he's already engaging it. And his scope would be to do 2 things. One would be to confirm that the property meets sort of the district's goals for the property, which we'll address in a second. And then 2, to come up with a valuation so that an offer can be made that is supported by an appraisal. The whole concept here is to make sure that what the district is doing is acquiring a property that fits within what's called the sole source exception to the ethics laws. When purchasing things from your own board members, the exception exists if the only way to get that object is by purchasing it from the board member. And so what we're trying to do here is build a record that that's the case. in order to move forward. And so it's our recommendation that we follow this process. There's a resolution sitting in front of you that starts this process. And what it identifies is that parcel, which doesn't have an address, but it's parcel number 683-0000010H, has been listed for sale, and it articulates features of that property that are desirable and to be confirmed by the third-party appraisal. And those criteria really are on page 2, that it has significant visibility to the traveling public for potential entry features, that it's near an entry point of the CID as a whole, that it's near an entry point for a residential area of the CID, it's zoned C4 or otherwise such that development to the allowable uses would be more intense than what's otherwise present in the district as a whole, and that it's adjoining already owned district property for potential parks and other facilities that can complement the nearby property. And so, as discussed in the last meeting, that's what this document is. It's the district establishing why is this property unique, why would we be interested in purchasing this, so that the appraiser can go confirm that that is correct as to this property and then provide you a value so that you can consider making an offer. That's my take on this one.
I know we have some comments. Did you want to comment on this? Let's open it up here.
And if you don't mind, sir, I can kind of go bullet by bullet on yours.
Yeah.
So as far as your first question of location, size, price, and really your second question about analysis, what's before them today is to retain an appraiser to get some answers to these questions. So there is no current appraisal on the property that at least the district's in possession of. So we would be obtaining that. In that document, we would get full details on, I guess, a market price, the size, some of the questions you've asked about here.
Well, we can go back to the very beginning if I could.
Okay, sure.
Or actually, it's the very end of the letter.
Okay, sure.
So I couldn't find in your charter, I mean, I understand your authority is voluminous, but I couldn't find in the charter where it's specified about purchasing of real estate and the process that you would follow. So is it even in the charter to purchase real estate?
It's by statute. So chapter 190.011 it allows the district to purchase and sell real estate.
I looked at that. Could you give me the actual number?
190.011 subsection.
Okay. Okay, that gives you the ability to purchase the real estate.
Purchase and sell real estate.
Okay, because it was kind of vague.
And they're broad. It could also, I mean, if you were a new district and you were through the condemnation process, those powers also extend to the board.
I understand. Just understand that when I first got into this, I thought your primary focus was the water plant and infrastructure, roads, that thing, which is your
We are
primary.
primarily a public works entity.
Right.
That's
Okay.
correct.
You're like a city. You act like a city manager in a way, in a mini city, but very small. Okay.
One other, I guess, legal document to be aware of as applies to Portland Islands is there's a county ordinance, 8664, that adds
I've read it.
some additional scope to the district, specifically as it regards to parks and facilities.
Sure.
So that's another kind of expansion of the traditional CED.
Right. What kind of threw me off though is I went back, and I'm smarter now than when I wrote the letter, but I went through the purchase of a 289 K's drive with the intention to control the property for what we would want to go in there. It's commercially zoned at this point. And it kind of bothered me because it almost hits on a form of discrimination. And I don't know if you really want to go there because the whole purpose of the buying that property was to control what we put in there. And I understand that is a benefit of the community, don't get me wrong. I just viewed that as being kind of wrong because where I come from, like if you got into that, you'd have to have a minimum of 3 independent appraisals and you'd have to have community meetings, public hearings on what you plan to do, how you're gonna do it, how it fits into the budget. That's, at least in Ohio, that's how the money. The other thing that gets into when you actually do buy something, I believe, but maybe this is Florida, I'm not sure. You have to have a public hearing because you do a bulk of your money comes from the non-ad valorem tax. And in order to, that's tax to do the infrastructure projects that you're working on. So if you're going to change that to actually a purchasing property, I would think that you'd have to have a public hearing for people to notice that, but maybe I'm wrong, I'm not the expert.
I would say that it's more like the revenue generated by the district needs to be spent for district purposes. And so as long as there's a valid district purpose, so you're limiting it to utility infrastructure, but the district has an ability to do more than just utility infrastructure.
So how does the due process work for all the property taxpayers? How do we put our input into a decision the board would make?
Well, it's happening right now.
Okay, but that's an awful small percentage compared to the total of 975 taxpayers per se. You're dealing with about 10. It seems like a,
It's not a public meeting, they can
Yeah,
come.
we can't control our attendance levels, but
Okay.
but
but you don't do any survey to get public input?
I'm not aware of any requirement to do a broad-based referendum style approach to real property acquisition.
Okay, I'm just asking.
No, I'm just answering.
Just trying to get your word. Okay, I think I've kind of covered that. So carry on.
Okay. In responding to this, or?
Yeah.
Okay. As far as the previous public discussions, there was a public discussion at the last meeting. There's one today. What I'm proposing is a multi-meeting approach anyway, so there will be further discussion on this. But I'm unaware of discussions in a public meeting prior to that. And as far as the budget goes, it wouldn't have been in the budget because at the time it was not contemplated the district would purchase this. The district has the ability to amend its budget as it goes through the year, and this would be something that would qualify, I assume, for a budget amendment based on the size of the acquisition.
Okay. Very good.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anyone else want to comment on this while we're getting comments?
Yeah, I hate to do this, but I think it needs to be said. I appreciate what the board has done here in Port of the Islands, but I have to raise the concern about conflict of interest here. I just don't think ethically that you brought up that they should be purchasing property from a board member. That just seems ethically wrong. Not that there's anything impropriety going on here, but it's just I don't think it's a road you really want to go down. Just personal opinion, you might get that from many people around here. You guys are doing great stuff, but this property acquisition stuff, in my opinion, is probably not really where we want to head. We've got enough problems with our property behind us, trying to manage that. And I think you guys are doing a fine job with that. My comments.
If I could just address that briefly before the next comment, or if you want to speak first.
No.
Just to briefly address the concern. I would agree that there is a Chapter 112 ethical issue here, in my opinion, and that's why there has to be this fairly elaborate determination that this is indeed a sole source acquisition. The exposure here is primarily to Mr. McNamee as the person who would be engaging in this transaction. What I'm proposing here is that this transaction not take place without an opinion from the State of Florida Commission on Ethics, confirming that there is in fact no conflict here. And just for record purposes, and we've reviewed multiple ethics opinions that have been issued to governments, wherein governments have purchased real estate from their board members. But in each case, there has been a large amount of analysis to determine that this was the only property that the board could buy in their given circumstance for their particular purposes. And so that's a very valid concern. I'm just saying that's why we're taking this approach.
I think therein lies the problem, right? What is the purpose of the district purchasing this property? There is no real clear purpose other than to inhibit commercial development. That's the only one I've heard.
Or control whatever goes in there.
Goes in there.
Control.
See if we sell it, at least we can sell it with some kind of deed restriction, or not sell it to somebody who wants to put a gas station in, or a clam factory, or something like that. If it's just sold outright, that is zoned for a lot of things.
But Mr.
Including-
McAfee has a choice of who he sells it to. Being a resident of this thing, you'd think that he would have that same concern and be able to control that. I don't think it has to go to the district to be able to control that. Granted, Mr. McAfee could sell it to somebody who didn't have a purpose and then they could sell it. So I get it, but it's really on thin ice in my opinion. Sorry, I don't mean to go against you guys, but I gotta give you some opinions, and I think it's shared by a lot of people that maybe don't have the courage to come and stand up and say that.
Thank you. John Thorman, Work Code. So the attendees who come to the meeting help make the decision. Who thinks we should buy property for the CID? Just raise your hand. Who thinks we should not buy the property? Okay, thank you.
Pretty close.
So, we do that again. Who doesn't think we should buy the property? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Who thinks we should buy the property? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
7.
7. Oh, we should not buy the property.
Pretty close. Okay,
I have one more about stock, 5090, just one more thing. I did commercial development, I sold franchisees, I had a business when we did that. So
They took a vote. I don't think they took a vote for the people that's on Zoom.
And I'm not sure, it wasn't a formal vote, I think he was just trying to do a hand raise, but if you
It
could-
wasn't formal.
If you could wait until this man's done speaking, and then we can get to you.
go ahead.
No, you're still speaking.
You're up.
Okay, so I was involved in commercial development, we sold franchises. All your major companies now use a demographics package, like Demographics Now. You gather the data from the district. You look at traffic counts, you look at populations, you look at their incomes, you look at their races. They have software to develop that. I can tell you with pretty great certainty that you'll have a hard time with any commercial value for either one of those parcels across the street today as it stands. I'm not saying it isn't possible, but the day of the small entrepreneur buying something thinking, oh, I'm going to put a restaurant in there. Well, restaurants only have a 60% failure success rate anyhow. Most fail. If you have a hotel over there, it's failing. Why? There just isn't enough volume and enough population to subordinate that. Okay? So as vacant land, it's fine. My posture is this, I don't think you have to worry so much about somebody coming along and building something on that property anytime soon. But that's just my personal opinion. I would like to see some studies done on that point by the board to get that data, consult with some outfits that would be potential, maybe a Dollar General. You know, see what is the potential before you make a decision. That's what I'm after.
I'm not sure who spoke on the Zoom, but did you have a comment that you wanted to make?
Said Ramos.
Ramos, I believe was the name.
Mr. or Ms. Ramos, are you still there by Zoom, and would you like to offer a comment? You may need to unmute yourself.
Okay, I guess just to confirm to the board, that what's before you for an up or down vote is 2 items. One is a resolution establishing that the parcel has a certain amount of unique features to be explored, and the second is hiring an appraiser to begin to collect some of the data that was suggested. There's nothing about these documents commits the district to purchase this property, but it does commit the district to spend money researching the property. So that's what these documents are. Depending on the result of those investigations, it's expected that at the subsequent board meeting, we would move forward. The resolution also instructs me to file the ethics opinion request. So it moves, in my mind, it moves everything forward to address the outstanding concerns. But at the end of the day, you asked me to prepare this, and I prepared it, so you need to talk through whether you'd like to move forward with this.
I guess at this point, I'll make a motion that we move forward with this.
So it would be, I would recommend doing, it would be a motion to approve the resolution, and then a separate motion to approve the appraisal agreement.
I have a question, and it's about the zoning.
Let's get a second for this first, then we'll open up.
Well, this relates to that.
Okay.
Just a question, like, to change the zoning, I understand that's expensive, but because we're a county entity, just, you know, would we get some kind of deal if we wanted to change the zoning from C4 to residential or something like that?
After acquiring the parcel, as the applicant, I'm unaware of any special discounts for governments rezoning parcels.
Should be free, what do you mean discount?
Well, and it's not, and I guess the concern, in my mind, and just as an aside, what makes a rezone potentially expensive is not necessarily the application fees to Collier County, it's developing the argument with the planners and the engineers to actually justify the change. And analyzing the growth management plan for this area and making sure that the change is something that's supportable. Although typically speaking, this is just an observation, I assume what you'd be doing is downzoning. And typically speaking, downzoning is not as difficult as upzoning. But that's not because you're a government or not a government, that's just part of land use.
Okay, at this time we have a motion on the floor, is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, discussion?
Wait, which one are we on now?
This is the
Appraisal?
resolution.
Resolution 2025. We go move forward with the resolution.
And how much is it gonna cost?
The appraiser
I
is,
said $250 an hour, but
Said like 4,000.
it's $4,000.
yeah, because you gotta know what it costs or what it's worth, right?
My advice as to the appraiser is that it is very important to get as much data as possible on this property because of the conflict of interest issue. I think if this were a true arm's length transaction, this could be approached differently, but I do not feel comfortable advising anything other than this approach as to this particular parcel.
Okay, no discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
And then separately, if you could move to approve the appraisal engagement letter.
I make the motion, we approve the appraisal.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
The last item that I had, just as an update, is, there's nothing in the package, just an update. I did email the council for Lindsay Case after the last board meeting, offering to discuss any potential proposal that might come back to you, and the response I got was, they will respond within the time frame, and that was the extent of the response. So the time frame has not expired yet, it expires, I believe, next week. I assume I'll receive some kind of response next week. I was hoping they would give us something before this meeting so we could provide input and have a meaningful discussion about it, but it seems that we will not be given that opportunity.
We talked about that contract before. And if he doesn't respond, the contract becomes null and void.
The ERC, the ERCs, the obligation of the ERCs become null and void. He will lose his entitlement to the
So he'll
ERCs.
be in breach of contract, which the contract goes away then.
That portion, he will not be able to get the ERCs. I'm not sure I understand.
They're still on the property.
Yeah, he's not living in the property.
He'll own the property.
He'll own the property.
Okay, so at this time, he's paying his O&Ms on the property of 109 by contract.
He's paying, I don't know what the exact number is, but he is paying his O&Ms. I believe I checked the tax records before the last meeting.
Okay, so that part of the contract would go away, so that means that after next week, that property would be treated just like any other property.
It will continue to be on the assessment roll for O&Ms.
Correct. However, he had a special break in that contract because he's only paying O&Ms, even though he has 50 acres, he's paying O&Ms on 100 houses or 109 houses. Right? Once that contract goes away, he would fall under the 4 per acre that the rest of the community is under. So that would mean his O&Ms would go up to somewhere around 200, which would substantially increase his O&M payment.
I will review.
because we are dealing with questions on the O&Ms from before. And one of them is a 4 per acre, because one of our residents had an increase in his, it went to 4 per acre. So we have to be very careful that it's treated equally. So if we're going to stick to that 4 per acre, and Lindsay's parcel, when his contract expires next week, would have to go to 4 per acre, which will take him double the amount he pays per acre.
I will review and we will follow through with whatever the contract says.
All right, further than that.
I don't have anything further. I'm available to answer any questions.
There was no other new or old business, and the engineer's materials were otherwise provided to Zach and I in advance, so that takes us down to item 12, other supervisor requests for
I
comments.
had a couple of, well, we can do the supervisor's request, I guess. I guess this is under old business, so let's touch that up quick. Under old business, I want to talk a little bit about the landscaping on the highway. I was driving down Davis in Naples, and they're expanding their medians and planting more things on areas that didn't have medians, adding medians. They're pouring curb and putting in plants and things like that, and more medians. And here we get nothing. And I think that that's something we really got to look into. We are part of the city of Naples, or the county, however you want to look at it. They say that they don't have money for anything out here. I argue that.
They're also expanding 951.
They're doing it all. They're adding more of where they want it. Those new neighborhoods are getting more trees, they're getting median. I don't see why that we can't get something out of here. So,
We can research that. I can tell you there is an urban area master plan that they will hide behind. And there are exceptions to that. As you know, we manage both Tiburon and Pelican Marsh, and those people for years have argued that there are no improvements on either Airport Road or Vanderbilt Beach Road that front their properties. And we're told the county has no plans as part of their upcoming 6-laning, and so there are different issues that are there. But if they are doing new work on Davis Boulevard or other areas, we can inquire as to what's the interpretation behind that, or what's the funding source behind that. And aside from the right-of-way permit that was issued that allowed this construction, there was a provision in there that said it would be the responsibility of Port of the Islands if you want to build it. If there's a basis that, or a new opinion as to how it is, they can pick and choose areas that they'll do, I'll research that.
okay. Because I do think that we have room. I think this is an example of squeaky wheel gets grease. I really do. I think that a couple meetings with the county, maybe we'll go on the county commissioner's agenda and go to a meeting.
There's a process for that, and we talked about that shortly after you hired us, and in the interim, the county commissioner came down here and made a presentation, and nothing really came as a result of that, but there's a process where we could petition the entire commission and ask for a little equity.
I think talking to our commissioner, and I know I'm going to get in trouble for this, but talking to our commissioner is time well spent. I think that we have to go before the board and talk to the board of commissioners.
I seldom go out Davis Boulevard. Are they 6-laning portions of that, and they're coming in at the conclusion to landscape medians, or can you help me a little further? I mean, I'll drive through there on my way back to the office, but.
Yeah, they were doing some down by Santa Barbara. They poured some new curbing there at the interchange and putting in new vegetation and things like that.
Okay.
I'm sure there's more. My point is that we're out here. I know I talked about the property. We were just speaking of the property that we're looking at possibly purchasing, and I said a couple meetings ago, or last meeting, I said that my personal opinion, I think we need some amenities out here. I think a park with some playground equipment, maybe something to do here. Somebody mentioned at the meeting, shuffleboard. bocce ball, things like that. If the hotel goes away, there's no pickleball courts here, that kind of thing. I think that would be, if we pick a spot in the community, I don't think there's a better spot than that lot. All right, because when you do parks, nobody wants it right by their bedroom. There's lots here that are boundaried by condos and things like that, that would work. But that one takes the noise and the activity away from any bedroom areas, right? It gets it away from that. It would be a nice thing there in that lot. I agree with you about that lot, that there's some issues with that. There's an easement through it and things, and the park would be able to work around those issues. So that's something I think we could get. If we did head that direction, I would certainly be going to the county and looking for some funds to pay for that. Things like that, because again, it's the same as this tree item, this median item. I don't think that we get very represented out here. All right, we pay taxes, we pay as much or more in taxes than other places, and what do we get for it? Right, you go into Naples and there's parks all over and things like that for the people. I know back up north, when a contractor, a builder comes in and builds out an area, he's required to set land aside in a community for a park. It's something that's in the laws, they have to do it. Here, we get nothing out here. And I think that it's a simple thing as the squeaky wheel gets the grease. I think we've been quiet, we sit here and we say, well, we don't have it, that's about as far as we take it. And I think that if we want more out here, we gotta stand up and fight a little bit. And that can start with when the county commissioners get on the agenda. There's news cameras, there's everything there at the county meetings. We've been there before. I know some of the people here have been at commission meetings with us before. So I'm not afraid to get on the agenda and go to a county commission meeting and see what we can get out of it.
One suggestion I have, and just something that a comparable community was able to achieve here, is they actually reached out to the Naples Botanical Garden, and the garden helped them get funding from the Collier Community Foundation to landscape medians. This would be in Everglades. It's a little bit of a different scenario because they are not within the jurisdiction of the county at all. However, they were able to get a substantial grant from the Collier Community Foundation, and then the Botanical Garden came in and did a whole analysis on salt-tolerant plants and what kinds of things look good and require low maintenance, and it helped them landscape a large amount of roads in the town, and then came back after a hurricane and got them more money to put plants back. So I think it'd be worth making contact, and anyone who wants to grab me afterwards, I can help make the contact. But I do think that there's no reason, absolutely no reason not to go to the Board of County Commissioners in their meeting and ask for these things, but just watching how sometimes things get actually accomplished, I think that reaching out to the Botanical Garden at the same time helps. Because the other thing the Botanical Garden can do, because they want to increase native vegetation, increase vegetation, and so what they sometimes do is they'll help you go to the Board of County Commission even, because they want to do the project. And so I think it's good to try to find what I'll call like a nonprofit ally to help with the project. So just a suggestion, it's something I've seen work, and it was really nice because the Botanical Garden handled most of the bureaucratic component of it. They basically just showed up and started planting trees, as long as the board said, yes, we'd like these trees.
Nice. Well, that's what I think we need to do. I think we have to actually put a little effort into getting some of this stuff, and that's a good start.
Yeah, I think it would help, but I agree with you that going to the county commission is the only way the conversation gets started. Because I think all the commissioners need to hear it. It needs to be on the record. But I share just like Neil, watching the county make road landscaping decisions has been an evolving and interesting process, that in part because it's politically difficult for them in a way, because their landscape budget is so massive that it sounds, put into numbers, it sounds sometimes a bit crazy because they're spending more than $10 million a year maintaining these medians. And so I think that at the time, several years ago, a reporter ran a story that it was something like $65,000 to $75,000 per mile per year of landscape medians. And based on the amount of mileage they had, and that about that time, it led to a vote at the county commission where they voted not to add landscaping as they build out new roads in certain areas. And this is what Neil's alluding to, that there's some policies in place that kind of get in the way here. But your explanation of this is not wrong. You're a taxpayer in the county. There's roads that could benefit from this. And so but I'm just thinking from a political standpoint, there's a lot of juice to be had by reaching out to the NGOs and seeing if they can help.
Okay. I think there's a couple of things we have in our favor. We're not asking them to landscape private boulevards or roads.
Understood.
We're talking about a state highway,
Nope, I get it.
right? And I think because it's, we're not going into our neighborhoods, I think that our ask is legit.
Oh, I'm not saying it's not, but I've watched them do a lot of gymnastics on this, because one thing they're going to say is that's DOT, it's not them, because it's a state highway. And so there's a lot of potential objections from them, and that's why I recommend the Botanical Garden, because they have their own goal in mind, which happens to line up with yours, which is planting trees, and they are good at clearing bureaucracy. If it goes nowhere, it is what it is, but I think it'd be a worthwhile reach out.
Okay, and then one more thing under the supervisor's request I want to talk about. I don't like the way we control, the traffic controls is controlled on the state highway. When traffic comes into town, they like to pass right by the bridge. That's a merge and more or less a merge lane for on and off traffic going into Newport. And everyone thinks it's a great passing lane, and they try to pass, and then they try to get back in by the time they get to the bridge, and there's always problems with that, especially if you're crossing the bridge and the cars are coming double wide towards the bridge. I think it's just an accident waiting to happen here. I really, truly do. And I think that at some point we have to go to the state and talk to them about somehow changing the way they manage the traffic through Port of the Islands here. So I don't know what that would consist of, changing up the way they mark that lane, that merge lane there, so that it's not a passing lane, changing the speed limits when they come through town here. If you head to Miami, what do you go through? You have 45s all the way through the Indian reservations and any kind of communities that we have between here in Miami, they slow it down to 45. Cars come across the bridge trying to pass there at 60, 70 miles an hour. So I think we have a problem. I'm not looking for stoplights or anything here, but I do think that we have to talk to the state and make it a little safer here for the community, so.
I'll speak to your engineer, Terry Brown, about, how can we go about asking FDOT to evaluate the situation that you're describing. I noticed it for the first time when I came in here this morning, a lot of that, I'll call it the outside lane on the bridge, it is sort of diagonally striped. But what you're saying is that nobody really pays any attention to that.
Well, they try to make it a passing lane, so by the time they pass one or two cars, as soon as that opens up for people to turn off on the Newport, they use it as passing lane, they come by, and then they gotta get back in before the bridge, and
Understood.
sometimes that's really tight.
It may also be helpful to reach out to the Collier MPO about just the traffic patterns.
Because I don't know how many times I
What happened to that
slammed.
trailer for the speed zone thing?
I don't know if that ever got accomplished. That was for our streets inside. Yeah. We can bring that up right now too, as soon as we're done with this. All right, so you're gonna check into that a little bit? Okay. I think at the last meeting, as Kevin mentioned here, at the last meeting, we talked about getting the trailer in here with the speed zones for Case Drive, for complaints about people going way too fast down Case Drive in Newport maybe. We're gonna move that trailer around a little bit and see if we'll bring.
Yeah, I think Kevin has had a conversation with him. Let me just ask for an update on that.
Then I will say Kevin's not here today. Kevin is at a grant meeting. It is at the exact same time as our meeting here, every quarter. So Kevin is there right now. And that, in that grant, we have things like the new water tank is our backup plan if FEMA doesn't come through for the well pipe that goes from the wells to the building, and several other grants that we have wound up in there. So he is working on that today. Anything else?
Does it? I got something.
Okay.
I need you to request, the pump out records for the last year from the marina. They're supposed to be available for 1 year.
The gray water?
Yeah. Well, no, the pump out,
Okay.
the sewage pump outs. So you have a pump out vote, because I went over there and asked him for it, and he said he didn't have it.
That's not correct.
What's not correct?
What you asked,
Or it's the individual boats.
not correct. What you asked is you demanded records from me without telling me who you were.
Yeah, I told you, I said I was gonna bring, I told you
Mike Hoekstra, Dockmaster, Port of the Islands.
I told you I was gonna bring it up at the
I have
meeting.
all the records. But if you come in my office and you ask me nicely and you shake my hand, tell me who you are and what you're looking for, not a problem. But if you stick your head in my office and start demanding for records, that does not happen.
I just asked you if you had it, you
No.
said you didn't.
You didn't ask like that.
Okay,
Come in the office, sit down, introduce yourself. I will give you any records you want. I have all the records for 5 years.
okay, well, you only have to keep them for one, so.
But I don't have to give you any.
Well, according to what I've read in the Florida statutes, you have to keep them for a year.
I have to keep 5 years.
Wow, that's better.
So,
I just wanna see what rate the boats are pumping out, that's all.
sure, I have all that
Okay,
quarterly and individual days.
I don't even care about that, I just like, yeah, quarterly would be good, just the last quarter.
If anybody thinks that we're sewage is going overboard, please contact FWC. Contact them. Because they will come out and they will put these dye packs in the boats. I've already done that. Because if somebody's dumping in the marina, they're done, they're out.
What do they put in the boat?
They put a dye pack. And what that dye pack does, goes through the toilet. And if that dye pack comes out underneath the boat, then they know that their system is open.
Yeah,
Yeah. FWC will come out and do it anytime.
right.
Please, I encourage you. If you think we're dumping, please call them.
Oh, I don't think you're dumping. I think it might be leakage or something like that. If that, like I told you, I was on the west side, east side of the hotel, and I ride my bike over there, and you get a whiff of like sewer water or
Correct.
something.
Correct.
And then I also got it on the south side when I was over by that little marina, that little floating
Do you understand
laundry thing.
what a marine tank is? Do you understand how it operates?
No.
Okay. They are made out of polypropylene typically, or some type of a plastic material. The waste goes in from the toilet. The waste is pumped out through a pump out system through our boats. All the tanks have a vent. They have to have a vent because if you're putting material in, where's that air going to go? The air has to vent out. All of them have vents. We require or request that you put a carbon filter in line. All the companies, Dematic, they all make carbon filters to put in line. Sometimes those carbon filters go bad. They only last about a year. They have to be replaced every year. So if you're getting any of that odor, it's probably from a bad carbon filter or a vessel that is not equipped with a carbon filter. So just because you smell it doesn't mean it's coming overboard from a boat.
You need to come to meetings more often.
Well, I appreciate if people, if they want to come into the office and see any type of records, if you just come in and tell me who you are. Don't just stick your head in my office and go, I need 6 months of your records.
No, I didn't do that.
Yes, you did. You were.
These people know I don't come across like that.
Sir, do you have any other things that you'd like to add? Otherwise, we're trying to adjourn the meeting.
No, that's good. That was it.
All right, sorry about that.
It's good help. It's much appreciated.
Thanks for coming.
Any other public comments? Your next meeting, by the way, will be May the 16th.
Just have one more. When you discussed about the bug spraying, all my stuff's electronic, like I get an email from Muni Billing, you know. Will those notices or special stuff, will that be included in email through Muni Billing when you do a survey about that, or are you going to mail it
I
out?
didn't hear anything about a survey today, but.
Well, I don't mean survey, but you're talking about an opt-out, all that. Will there be a form attached to this, or will I have to wait for something in the mail?
Yeah, I don't know about the details. The primary discussion was to put that notice in the proper link to the mosquito control district on our website.
Okay, all right, thank you.
If I can fall in behind that and do some sort of blast email to those emails that we have, and we don't have a high level of those community building, we can.
Can you people, oh, okay, so it's all through Muni?
Yeah, I don't know that that's a required field on Muni building.
Okay, no problem. One other thing, I know you've had a lot of discussion about tearing out all that landscape and the medium and all that because of the $29,000 a year maintenance. And I know the number's big, but sometimes it's how you look at a number, because I thought, oh, that's a lot of money, but then I thought, well, if there's 975 residents, that's $30 a year per resident to maintain that landscape. Now, if people thought about it that way, all of a sudden it wouldn't seem so harsh. You understand? I mean, everybody's very sensitive today about all the, money, because everything's gone up, right? Utilities, everything, there's standard inflation. But the other thing I'd like to see, and I don't know, can we get a bull list of all these, because you got a lot of major capital projects, just kind of a status and the funding and.
It's on the website.
It's all on the website?
CIP is on the website.
Oh, is it? Okay, I didn't see that, I apologize. Okay, no problem, thank you so much.
Yeah,
I'm just trying to get an idea, when I look at it, okay, what's my burden in case you can't get funding, you can't get a grant, when's the timing of this, so I could kind of anticipate how much out of pocket it may be. And I think that's concerned of everything.
The CIP is out there, and we have a lot of things going on behind the scenes to try to lower the amount that's on the CIP.
Yeah, I understand that, and I appreciate that, very do, I really do. So just, again, it's all communication, right?
Yes.
Thanks.
So,
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn?
make a motion.
Second it.
No.
Hello, I have a quick question. Hello, quick question. This is Ramos on the line. Quick question. Has the hotel updated all their bills for the CID? Are they still owe money? Water getting cut off, or that has been averted?
Currently, there is a disputed potable water bill that arguably also includes the swimming pool. I don't know enough about the details of that, but the hotel condominium most recently had a bill that was in arrears. I reported that last month.
Do you have a guesstimate of what that amount was?
I think it was $2,300, something like that. Did you say, Sergey, you have two questions?
Guess what?
Go ahead, if you all identify yourself.
Right, Ernie Peterson, 170 Newport Drive. I just want to follow up on the last gentleman's comments about the landscaping, $29,000. You're talking about buying additional land that has to be maintained.
Right.
You know, land that has to be at least mowed and trimmed and additional costs, and yet you're trying to get rid of costs that everybody sees when they drive by for the islands.
We can't get rid of it. I think the desire is why can it not be absorbed into the county-wide landscape meeting? Why is this community treated separate? It's either going to be removed or it's going to be maintained by Port of the Islands. That was a condition of the permit that allowed it to be constructed.
Yes, you signed that permit years ago, making that commitment. And now you're talking about, in the minutes from the last meeting, putting sod in there in order to get out of that commitment. I just don't think it's fair.
Right, but we talked again about the fact that I personally feel that we're not getting what we should from the county. I think that the county should be maintaining that median.
Yeah, that's fine, and you talked about how you're going to do that. But the option of removing it and not having it there, that affects the appearance of our community and adds to our the life here.
Well, I think
So-
one thing you're missing was, in their reports was that we would have to return it back to the way it was except for trees for them to take it back over. So nothing's happening unless they take it back over. If they take it back over, then we'd have to return it back to some. So we're still waiting on probably forever.
Well, I don't want the landscaping removed. So I think that should not be an option. Either we continue to pay for it, or we
There
let the
really
county.
hasn't been any serious conversations in regard to removing what's there.
You know, really, there isn't, I don't know, I'm not a landscaper, but I look at it, I see a lot of bushes off the side. That's what most of it is. And I look at the medians that they have on Davis and some different things, and they are maintaining a higher level of landscaping than we have here.
But they don't have left turn lanes. You have to be able to see, when you're in the median, you have to see oncoming traffic.
Yes.
And if it gets too high, you can't see that.
But there isn't a lot of color in it either. I mean, they get colors and they have all kinds of things they're doing. So I think that we sit out here and we're out and not in anybody's line of sight out here, and I think we get unnoticed. And I think if we go to the county and tell them we're here and we want to see some of this out here, some different things, I think that we can probably gain some ground on that.
Yeah, so I hope you're successful in that.
Well, I think it's possible. I'm not saying it is there, but if we don't ask, we'll never know.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
Okay, motion please.
I have one, please. Ann? Catherine Kellmeyer, Newport Drive. You've all heard Neil say that two of the most prestigious areas in Collier County that they manage has been unable to get Collier County to kick in to beautify this area that Neil manages. And how can you expect them to take care of little old us? And you're trying to take away something that has been there for years, and we were thankful to get it when it came in. And to try to remove it, the $30 a unit per year is absolutely ridiculous. You're going backwards on that. Good luck with trying to get the county to go. MSTU is at a possibility, which just has us paying for it anyway. So I don't think you're gonna make it, but good luck trying. Thank you.
Was there a second to the motion?
I second it.
Yes. Your next meeting again is May the 16th. The third Friday is early next month, so if you just make note of that.
What's early?
Like 16. Sounds like the middle.
Oh, I think meant earlier.
It's 20. Yeah, pretty much like this. Thank you all. Mr. Truckee, can I get your signature?
I want you to look at this.